Jason Statham decided to do a social test. As such, he disguised a farmer and entered the luxurious show of private jets as an ordinary man. But his presence caused immediate discomfort. With a wide flap hat, boots marked by the earth, and a faded cotton shirt, he seemed to have come out directly from a countryside. The contrast with the atmosphere was stark. Around, clients elegantly dressed and impeccable staff seemed to freeze as he saw him cross the entrance. "Excuse me, Mr. called Richard, the main seller, as he walked toward Jason. There was something in his tone that sounded more like a barrier than as a reception. Richard looked at him from above, his gaze taking a long time, especially in the dusty boots that marked the bright ground. "You are in the right place. This showroom specializes in high-standard aircraft." The emphasis on the high word was almost a disguised blow. Jason, quiet, answered naturally. "Yes, I'm in the right place." "I want to see that model there," he said, pointing to a state-of-the-art jet with impeccable lines and finish that seemed to have been polished to perfection. Richard blinked, as if he was not sure if he had heard correctly. "The Gulfstream G650 repeated, with a small smile that carried more unbelief than sympathy. The other customers began to notice the interaction. A nearby couple changed glances, and the woman murmured something that made the man laugh in a contained way. The buzz was subtle but unmistakable. Meanwhile, Richard seemed increasingly uncomfortable. He cleared his throat, adjusting his tie, and tried to disguise his impatience. "Well, this is a very unique model. We can schedule a virtual tour for you to take a look, but you may want to start with something more basic." Jason tilted his head without losing his composure. "Basic? No, I came here to see exactly this jet. Can I get into it?" Richard's hesitation was palpable. He looked around as if he looked for someone to confirm that it was not a prank. "Of course, sir," he replied, with a mixture of sarcasm and resignation. "But I must warn that this model starts at $50 million. It may be better to evaluate your options before wasting a lot of time." The words were carefully chosen, but the tone revealed what he really thought. Jason was unable to be there. Jason took a step toward the jet, ignoring his eyes and insinuations. The mood at showroom was loaded. It was as if every judging look is proof to him. But contrary to what everyone expected, he didn't seem intimidated. His expression was quiet, almost as if watching a scene unfolding in slow motion. At that moment, who was really being tested was not Jason, but all around him. Jason entered the jet with calm steps, his eyes exploring every detail of the luxurious interior. The impeccably aligned leather seats, the technological panel, and the sophisticated finish captured their attention. He slid his hand over one of the armchairs, as who appreciates something done with extreme care. But as Jason admired the jet, the mood outside became heavier. Richard, the seller, kept standing next to the door, watching Jason with an impatience-laden expression. He consulted his clock every minute, sighing audibly, and seemed to strive to disguise his irritation. "Sir, maybe you prefer less advanced models," he said, finally breaking the silence. The pause before the advanced word was not accidental. Jason turned, staring at Richard with peace of mind. "I think he meets exactly what I look for," he replied, firmly in his voice. But the seller didn't seem convinced. He adjusted the cuffs of his shirt and, with a tone loaded with condescension, replied, "This is a very unique model. Usually our customers have specific requirements and compatible budgets." Meanwhile, a group of clients in the salon began to whisper, exchanging fun looks. The discreet laughs soon became evil comments. "Look, the peasant lost in the jet showroom," said one of them, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Another bolder client," he added. "Does he think we accept payment in corn bags?" The words, loaded with irony, pulled laughs scattered throughout the hall. Jason, however, remained calm. He took a deep breath, ignoring the provocations that echoed around. His focus seemed to be in the jet, as if nothing could deviate from his purpose. But the tension in the environment was almost palpable, like a rope being stretched to the fullest. Richard, realizing that the provocations were not having an effect, tried once again to demotivate him. "Sir, I need to remember that this model is personalized and requires a careful buying process. Only committed customers often advance at this stage," he said with an artificial smile. Jason left the jet, stopping at the door for a moment. He looked straight into Richard's eyes and, in a firm and quiet voice, replied, "I am exactly the type of customer you should treat seriously." Without altering his tone or showing any sign of shaking, Jason walked toward the next point of interest, leaving behind whispers, laughs, and suspicious looks. As Jason supported the waves of contempt around, an unexpected figure emerged in the crowd. Tom, a middle-aged man with a genuine smile and a friendly energy, approached. Unlike the others, his gaze did not carry trial, only curiosity. He adjusted his glasses, stepped ahead, and commented in a playful tone, "If you want my opinion, the leather of this model looks great, but I would bet the air conditioner is what really makes the difference in the heat of a farm." Jason looked up, surprised by his relaxed tone. That comment did not have the weight of an insult, but of an attempt to relieve tension. He laughed, albeit in a contained way, and answered, You can say that it would be an update, and so compared to my tractor." Tom released a genuine laugh and held out his hand. "Tom Richards. I think I'm seeing a guy who knows what he wants, even if no one here knows how to see it." The sincerity in the gesture in Tom's words was like a breath of fresh air in the suffocating environment of showroom. Robert answered him, giving a fake name and squeezing the other man's hand. For a brief moment, the surrounding hostility seemed less important. As they talked, Tom kept his tone light. "Do not call these people. They think expensive clothes and bright watches define character. If you ask me, I prefer dusty boots and a good story." Jason looked around, watching the persistent whispers and the eyes of contempt that still hanged in the environment. With a serious expression, he replied in a lower tone, "I'm here to buy a jet, but it's hard not to feel that I chose the wrong place for it. It seems that everything here says that I do not belong." Tom shook his head, crossing his arms like something important. "This has nothing to do with what you wear or how they look at you. Who makes real money, as you clearly did, have no time to worry about these bullshit." The comment brought a flash of comfort, but Jason was still loaded by the weight of the surrounding eyes. Tom realized this and, leaning a little closer, he said, almost conspiracy, "If someone here thinks he's more important than you, just remember, they also started from somewhere. But in their case, it was probably the bottom of Dad's safe." Jason laughed, and the mood between them became lighter, despite the wicked laughs and comments that continued in the background. Tom remained there, an ally in a car, while Jason, still uncomfortable but determined, was beginning to find more firmness in his presence. The environment, which was already loaded with trials, became even more hostile when a showroom client decided to break any description facade. A man of impeccable suit, millimetrically aligned hair, and arrogant posture took a step ahead and launched his provocation with a tone that seemed projected to be heard by everyone. "Hey, cowboy, are you sure you didn't get in the wrong place? I think the tractor store is a few miles here," he said, laughing loudly as he looked around, seeking approval in the expressions of others. The shy laughs soon became echoes scattered around the hall. A group of close clients began to laugh more openly, encouraging the provocateur. "Perhaps he is here to take some pictures of the jet and hang in the barn as inspiration," commented another, tearing even more laughs. The man in a suit, excited about the impact, took another step further, pointing to Jason's boots. "These have already stepped in a lot of manure, huh? Don't think it's going to get the carpet of a jet like this?" Almost everyone's eyes on showroom were fixed on Jason now. Some showed curiosity, other fun. With each comment, the pressure seemed to increase. Even those who did not laugh directly looked at an expression that said everything without words. It was as if everyone expected Jason, under the weight of that public humiliation, to give up and left. Jason, however, remained standing. He took a deep breath. The expression on his face was from someone who was used to facing challenges, but still felt the discomfort of the situation. He looked calmly to the provocateur, who, drunk on the laugh, seemed to expect some answer that further fed his performance. Jason's silence contrasted with the noisy atmosphere, creating a contrast that in itself began to bother the most attentive. Some expected him to react, to return, to give some excuse or explanation, but instead Jason kept his posture as if he was processing each word and carefully deciding how to deal with that circus of humiliation. Meanwhile, Tom, the only one who had shown empathy, watched closely. He crossed his arms, throwing a disapproving look at the provocateur, as who wondered how long he would take until someone dared to intervene. But for now, Jason seemed to be in control, even under the weight of so many glances and comments that tried to reduce him to something smaller. The whole showroom was like a stage now, with Jason in the center of attention. And even in the face of that cruelty, something in his posture made it clear that he did not intend to leave without fulfilling what he had gone to do. Jason, who had stood firm to that point, finally decided it was time to answer. He stepped forward, lifting his eyes to face directly the provocateurs who led the mockery. The atmosphere, still filled with laughs and whispers, seemed to slow down as Jason was beginning to speak. "You can laugh as much as you want," he said, with a calm that silenced part of the murmurs. "But I'll leave something clear. I'm not here to impress anyone." His voice carried a firmness that cut the tension in the air. He let the phrase hover for a moment, as who gave the words for the words to sink into the minds of each person present. The provocative, surprised by the reaction, tried to recompose himself. "Oh, of course it's not here to impress, but it doesn't seem to be here to buy either. Or did it bring a bag of gold coins in the pocket of these shabby pants?" He laughed, trying to resume control of the situation. Some around still released laughs, but the laugh no longer had the same strength. Jason continued, ignoring the comment. He took a deep breath and, with a look that conveyed both tranquility and determination, replied, "If you think a clean shirt and an expensive suit define who can or not be here, maybe it's time to rethink what really matters." The lounge, hitherto full of noise and laughs, began to dive into an uncomfortable silence. People exchanged glances and the provocative seemed less confident. Jason, however, was not over. He led his hand to the hat, taking slowly, as well as saying goodbye to a disguise that was no longer necessary. "Perhaps you know me otherwise," he said, revealing your identity in a simple but powerful way. The words sounded like a silent explosion. First came the whispers, while the unbelieving glances walked Jason's face, then the total silence. The provocateur went back, clearly not knowing what to say. The arrogance of before has disappeared in seconds. In the corner of the room, someone murmured, "It's him, Jason Statham." The name ran for showroom as fire and dry straw. One by one, the gifts began to retreat, as if they tried to escape the shame that now surrounded him. The teasing tried to open his mouth to speak, but could not formulate a single sentence. Jason remained standing, looking at each face with the same firm expression, as if saying silently that appearances were not what defined someone. The showroom, which once vibrated with laughs and insults, now seemed trapped in almost suffocating silence. Jason, still quiet, took another step forward, turning everyone's discomfort into a moment of introspection. "I decided to dress as a farmer to see how I would be treated, and I must say I'm disappointed. But the experience opened my eyes. I know exactly what to do now." After all the tension at showroom, Jason left the place with steps firm, taking the phone on the way. The air still carried the remnants of the judgment of others, but its expression showed a mixture of determination and focus. He quickly died, his voice loaded with seriousness. "Anthony, I need you to come to the private airport now. Something happened here and it's serious. Open discrimination, humiliation. I won't let it pass." Across the line, Anthony Carter, known for his remarkable presence in both court and outside him, responded with peace of mind. "Understanding, Hassan. I am on my way. Give me 15 minutes." Shortly thereafter, a black car parked at the entrance of showroom. Anthony came out with safe steps, wearing a perfectly adjusted suit and an expression that already denounced that he was there to solve the problem. His presence alone was enough to draw the attention of those around. He entered the showroom as a silent thunder, his eyes quickly evaluating the situation. Employees who had once moved Jason exchanged nervous glances. The earlier provocateur diverted his look, clearly uncomfortable. "I am Anthony Carter," he began, in a firm but controlled tone. "I represent Zenho Jason Statham. I am here because I was informed of a discriminatory and humiliating treatment that he received in this establishment. I want everyone to understand that what happened here will not be ignored." The silence dominated the environment. Anthony walked slowly through the hall, his fixed eyes on the employees and customers who had participated in the embarrassment. His presence was so intense that he seemed to reduce others in the room. This is not just an isolated incident. It is a direct violation of basic principles of respect and equality. "Your actions will not be swept under the rug," he continued, with each word echoing as a sentence. "Let's take all possible legal measures to hold those involved." One of the employees tried to babble an excuse. "Mr. Carter, there was a misunderstanding." Anthony interrupted him without hesitation. "What happened here is recorded, and the images will speak for themselves. There is no room for empty excuses. Now I recommend that you prepare to face the consequences." While Anthony spoke, the showroom seemed to shrink. Each look once loaded with superiority now bowed to shame or fear. Jason watched the scene from where he was, seeing how Anthony turned the atmosphere with his conviction and authority. In the end, Anthony concluded, looking directly at the showroom manager, "The actions have consequences. Wait for our official notification. And, most importantly, use it as an opportunity to learn something fundamental. Character is worth more than appearance." Without more words, he turned to Jason, a subtle gesture of those who had full control of the situation. The showroom, which was once the scene of mockery, was now submerged in a heavy silence, where everyone felt the weight of the mistake they had made. Days later, the court was packed. On one side, Jason sitting next to Anthony Carter, his lawyer. On the other, the showroom company representatives, with expressions that varied between nervousness and injured pride. The tension was palpable, as if each person in the room could feel that something important was about to happen. Anthony got up, his impeccable posture and his sharp gaze. He started with a firm and straightforward tone. "Very Merritt, this case is not just about isolated words or attitudes. It is a pattern of behavior that cannot be tolerated. My client was the target of open discrimination, public humiliation, and purely based on appearance judgments." His voice echoed through the room, each word chosen with surgical precision. He walked to the middle of the hall and gestured so that filming was displayed. The screen's light, showing Jason entering the showroom, being ignored by staff and the target of laughs and malicious comments from other customers. The jurors' expressions changed immediately. Some frowned, others shaking their heads in disapproval. The scene advanced to the moment Jason was openly ridiculed by the arrogant client. The sentence "returns to the farm" was heard clearly, followed by the laughs of those present at showroom. The recording showed everything: glances of contempt, condescending gestures, and the attitude of the seller, who clearly treated Jason as someone who should not be there. Anthony paused the shoot and turned to the jurors. "These images speak for themselves. There is no doubt about the treatment my client received. Now let's hear someone who was there and witnessed it in person." He called Tom to the witness bench. Tom walked there with confidence, adjusted the microphone, and started talking. "When I saw Jason in that showroom, I realized that he was not treated like other customers. From the moment he entered, he was tried by the clothes he wore, the way he walked, and even when he asked to see one of the most expensive models, he was received with sarcasm and disdain." Tom paused, looking straight at the jurors. "I was there. I heard the employees laughing at him, the other customers making jokes like, 'Funny someone different entering that space.' But the truth is that Jason was there with the same intention as anyone else, making a purchase." As Tom spoke, the silence in the room was absolute. Every word of his seemed to reinforce what was already clear in filming. Anthony approached with a more personal tone this time. "Tom, in your opinion, was the treatment that my client received in that showroom was fair?" Tom shook his head. "No, sir. It was disrespectful, cruel, and completely unjustifiable." The murmur in court began to grow, people exchanging glances and shaking their heads in disapproval. Anthony looked at the judge. "Very Merritt. There is no doubt about what happened. The actions seen here not only harmed my client, but represent something much greater: the failure to treat people with basic dignity." The judge, visibly impacted by what he had seen and heard, signaled Anthony to conclude. With that, Anthony returned to his place as the murmurs intensified. In court, it was impossible to ignore the impact of Tom's evidence and testimony. The trial now moved to an outcome that would mark that day as a watershed. The judge adjusted the glasses, facing the present in court with a firm and solemn expression. The room was absolutely silent, all awaiting the verdict that would close that case that had exposed so much about wrong prejudices and judgments. After analyzing the evidence presented and listening to the testimonies, this court concludes that the Mr. Jason Statham was the victim of evident discrimination and public humiliation by the company and its employees. The judge's voice echoed with authority, while the faulty looks fell on those responsible for the showroom. He continued, "As a reparation, this court orders a substantial fine to the company, designed to train its employees in raising and respectful practices. In addition, compensation will be paid to Mr. Statham for the suffering caused." The impact of the words was immediate. Company representatives dropped their heads, visibly defeated. The silence was interrupted by whispers among the viewers, who commented on the finally made justice. Jason remained sitting for a moment, absorbing the result. When the judge got up, signaling the end of the hearing, Jason also stood up, maintaining a firm posture. He squeezed Anthony's hand, who smiled and said low, "We got it, but the impact of it goes far beyond us." Upon leaving court, Jason was surrounded by reporters and curious who wanted to hear his words. He lifted his hand, asking for silence, and spoke with a tranquility that captivated everyone around. The real gain here is the opportunity to change mentalities. Jason's words were greeted with applause and murmurs of approval. He crossed the crowd with his head held high, a serene expression on his face. Tom, who was waiting for him outside, approached a warm smile. "You made history here, Jason," said Tom, lightly hitting his friend's shoulder. Jason answered with a discreet smile, "I just hope it makes people think twice before judging someone for what they see on the surface." As he walked away from court, Jason felt that, despite his difficult experience, something positive had arisen of that situation. He had turned a moment of pain into a lesson that would echo for a long time. True victory was not in court, but on the impact of their struggle on those who still needed to learn the value of respect